I'm talking today to Sean Krepp, who is the country manager of Grameen Foundation. Sean, tell me, what does Grameen do in Uganda?
Well, so Grameen, first and foremost, has a mission to empower people in the plight to alleviate poverty, and we generally use two sources or two tools to empower people, and that's access to finance and access to information. In Uganda specifically, we are using the mobile phone because it's the most affordable, accessible technology to deliver upon that mission that can impact people's lives. Specifically, because of the context of Uganda, we focused on agriculture because 80% of the population is employed in one way or another in agriculture. And secondly, it has a large proportion of the population that lives below the poverty line.
So tell me about the area that you're working in and how many people you're reaching and the ways in which you reach them.
Yeah, so we've created what we call a business in a box, or a micro franchise, that it consists of a smartphone with some applications and agricultural content embedded in it, and a data collection tool, and then an off-grid charging solution with some marketing materials, where we go out and train community knowledge workers to be really the theory of technology diffusion is they are the early adopters, the trusted members of the communities that take that technology, the ag information technology, out to their communities and diffuse it. At this point in time, as I speak, we have about 800 trained community knowledge workers in more than 20 districts of Uganda. Of course, we work closely with partners because we want to connect the smallholder into a value chain as well. So we're typically working with somebody like a World Food Program that actually is trying to stimulate the growth of grain or beans and get those farmers a market as well. So we want them to grow more and better, but also then have a place to sell at a price that's good for them.
So how many households are you reaching?
Right now we've reached or registered 70,000 households. The average household size in Uganda is about 5 to 6 people.
So it's about 250,000.
Yeah, we're getting close to that. Our aim is to reach over 1 million because, again, with technology diffusion, we've all heard of the tipping point. We'd like to hit a certain amount of critical mass so that actually we can have a transformative effect on the entire agricultural sector. So we're thinking big.
Right.
And we'd like, of course, to also get the model right and make sure that we're having the social impact that we're expecting. We're seeing some good trends in that direction. We just finished our data mining exercise because we have this amazing capability of being able to collect data daily over the mobile.
And see it in real time.
Exactly, and see it in real time from all of those communities. And that gives us an incredible insight, I guess you could say, into how our CKWs, our community knowledge workers, are performing out there every single day, and what sort of touch and reach are they having with those farmers in the communities, because they all those phones have GPS, and we can actually see where each of those dialogues are.
And all of those community knowledge workers can ring into a call center, can't they, for more information?
Indeed, yeah. So, as telephone, let's say diffusion is, we're getting close to 50% now in Uganda. As that starts to diffuse as well as a technology, the ability of people to make a phone call directly to us increases. But also the CKWs themselves have a lot of, let's say, second-tier support needs that isn't available in their ag extension manual, which includes 40 crops, 8 livestock, weather information, market price information, etc., and service providers, and so on. But there are cases where we can't foresee every problem, so we need this feedback loop. And the CKW themselves can call into the call center, and we have agronomists who can, in about 80% of the cases, help them right on the spot, and then add that knowledge to our knowledge base. So the next time they connect with our database, they get the new knowledge on their hands. So we're constantly growing, let's say, the data, the ag extension manual, if you will, that's made available to each CKW.
And those community knowledge workers are managed a bit like dare I say it, like salespeople.
Yeah, it's a, you know, for development, the word sales can be a little tricky, but yeah, indeed, because, and this is what our data mining is showing us, that we did a correlation between the incentives that we give, and we pay each of those 800 micro entrepreneurs by mobile money. So at the end of every month, we look and see, oh, you've touched more than 48 farmers with information this month, and you've done more than 8 surveys, and you've registered 15 new farmers, because remember, we want to keep diffusing the knowledge. You're therefore entitled to 61,000 Ugandan shillings, which is an increment of about an extra $1 a day, because the average CKW is also impoverished. So they're also, we do a poverty scorecard on every farmer we touch and every community knowledge worker that we bring into the network. And at the end of the month, if they're successful, they get their 61,000 shillings in value, and we withhold a small amount for the equipment that we've leased to own for them. So we've given them the startup business in a box, and they pay it back over time. And that actually helps them, as it gives them an incentive to protect their assets, because these are the things that bring them a livelihood. So you could argue we've created more than 800 jobs in the country. And then they take it very seriously. You should see how CKW opens up their smartphone with the protective cloth rather carefully, and you know, it really is, because not only is it the tool with which they do their work, but it is where they get paid. So it's their wallet as well. And we're seeing so far that in the, if you want to call them a sales force, the expected amount of farmers reached per CKW, per parish that they're in, is almost 100% correlated. And if you know R squares, it's like an R squared of 0.9. So almost all the probability of their performance is linked to that incentive. The other parts are non-monetary benefits, so the status within their community, the social capital that they create. But by and large, it really is
related to those incentives.
In a way. But at the other side, when you actually get out there, and I was out there a week ago speaking to the farmers, you really see that their level of confidence in themselves, and the fact that they themselves are like demo farmers. They're the ones who apply the knowledge first. So I've got 800 demo farms out there. And then the neighbors are looking over the shoulder and saying, you know, is that working? And if it does, and you know, there's always the, in tech diffusion theory, there's the inner circle of that community knowledge workers network, that I call them the early adopters. They pick it up first, then you have your fast followers who are on the periphery watching and waiting for a growing season to pass, and then you've got your laggards, and then you've got the ones who will never adopt. You know? And that's sort of, you know, we're seeing that really borne out in the data.
And you've just had an impact assessment done. What's that shown? We
worked with IFPRI, and we brought in a very, very good researcher from IFPRI, and he did a differences in difference study to basically look at a control group versus an area where we deployed our CKWs, and it really exciting. There is a knowledge effect. So people receiving services from CKWs are becoming more knowledgeable about farming. Point one. Point two, and this is probably the most exciting finding that I could, I'm just, you know, jumping out of my skin, is that the ones in eastern Uganda, in Kapchorwa, where the study took place, got 17% more for their grain in terms of grain prices than those in the same region that were not served by a CKW. So
there's a visible economic effect,
which is exactly our theory of change. And you know, why do this if you're not having you know, the social impact? And why do this if you can't scale it? And why do this if it's not sustainable? And that's why we have a business model behind so we can, you know, do more good.
And very briefly, what do you think will happen when you get up to critical mass, when you get up to 1 million or 2 million? What's going to happen then?
Well, first of all, we're going to do a randomized control trial. So we can make some more causal statements of the linkage on impact. So by then we'll have a much better idea about, I think the key ratio for us is the cost per adoption. Now, if I can prove that this is one of the most cost-effective ways to get agricultural technology adoption on the planet, and
no modest claim.
No. If that is possible to prove, then first I think, perhaps the National Extension, whom we're piloting with right now, might adopt this actually more broadly, and we would see then again that shifting strategy that's happening with ministries, whereby less skilled people would be able to have that frontline and self-help role in the communities, and we could hopefully then create an economic growth trajectory for the agricultural sector, moving people from subsistence to commercial. And beyond that, also there's a huge urbanization flow. We might be able to entice some of the youth into the farming business, and not have such, because abject poverty in an urban area is much worse than poverty in the rural area, because you have the disease, you have the the conditions of living are much worse. So we might be able to help with some of the let's say creation of jobs in the regions as well. So I think there could be some good positive upside to all of that, to all of this. Yes.
Sean, thanks for talking to me today.
You're very welcome. Thank you.